In 2016, a Google satellite image suddenly went viral because it showed a pyramid. Of course, the pyramid is not unusual. What is remarkable is that the location where the picture was taken shows that it is in the Ellsworth Mountains of Antarctica. The base of the pyramid is 2 kilometers long and 1,265 meters high. Compared with the Egyptian, the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is 216 meters long and 145 meters high, the pyramid in Antarctica is almost 10 times larger. Now it's all over the internet. On this matter, the internet is divided into 2 factions. One is the nature faction. They said it was a naturally formed hill that just happened to look like a pyramid. So what's all the fuss about? Another is the artificial faction. They said, please open your eyes and see clearly. How can something happen to look so neat? Only artificially possible. So, are the giant pyramids formed naturally or artificially built in this icy world? Before answering this question, let's start with an ancient language in South America. There is a Lake Titicaca in the Andes Mountains at the border of Peru and Bolivia in South America. That is also the birthplace of the Inca Empire. A group of Indians called Aymara people have lived by the lake for generations. They live a farming life of sunrise and sunset, and their language is called the Aymara language. Because the population of this language is about 2.5 million people, it is not a small language. So Bolivia and Peru have listed it as one of the official languages. You might say that preserving Aboriginal culture is good, but it's nothing new. But what would you think if I told you that the Aymara language is one of the most rigorous computer languages? In 1984, Bolivian mathematician Ivan Guzman de Rojas developed a multilingual translator as a translation tool for the Panama Canal Commission. He also competed with software development groups from 11 European universities, which can be strong competitors. But in the end, Guzman came out on top. Guzman's secret weapon of success was the Aymara language, because he found that the language used by the Aymara people was very different from other naturally evolved languages. In addition, naturally evolved language has ambiguity, and people need contextual cues and other information to figure out what a statement means. The Aymara language is well designed. Its syntax is concise, rigorous, and without ambiguity. Almost every sentence has a clear and precise meaning, and the computer can execute it clearly without the help of context. Using the Aymara language as an intermediate language, Guzman can translate between different languages without making too many changes to the program. So, who created this language? After years of research, a Canadian ancient civilization researcher Rand Flem Ath came up with his interpretation. In the legend of the Incas, there is a group of gods called Viracocha. They are technologically advanced, kind and peaceful, and came to Lake Titicaca from the far sea, where they created an ancient civilization. They left splendid megalithic buildings to the Inca Empire, such as the Temple of Pumapunku, and they also left behind a city called Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku is the name of the Aymara language. It is the largest ancient city site in South America, and now it can see an area of more than 4 square kilometers. The famous Acapana Pyramid, the Gate of the Sun, and Kalasasaya Temple are the most prominent megalithic architectural representatives of Tiwanaku. The megalithic statues of Viracocha can also be seen here. The most striking feature of these buildings is that they are made of several dozen tons of megalithic stones, cut with great precision and put together seamlessly, without the use of cement and other adhesives, the same way as the Egyptian pyramids were built. According to legend, the Viracocha gods recited a spell, and the cut boulders were neatly spliced overnight. When dawned, people opened their eyes and saw that a majestic temple had already stood by the water. Flem Ath believes that not only the material relics such as Pumapunku and Tiwanaku left by the mysterious Viracocha, but they also created the Aymara language. Some archaeologists believe that Tiwanaku was built in the 2nd century AD, less than 2,000 years ago. Still, Some more open-minded archaeologists believe that Tiwanaku may have been built as early as 10,000 years ago, based on the hydrogeological changes at Lake Titicaca. In 2015, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization re-examined Pumapunku. They found that it is larger than they initially thought. It is actually about 170,000 square meters, larger than the Giza pyramids in Egypt. Moreover, the Tiwanaku city ruins where it is located have water supply and drainage systems underground and various residential facilities, and even swimming pools. This place used to be a developed ancient city. What amazes UNESCO the most is that the fossils of shellfish and fish can be found next to the retaining wall of Tiwanaku. What does this mean? It shows that the city was once by the lake, and the retaining wall was the former lake embankment. The current Lake Titicaca is about 20 kilometers away from the Tiwanaku site. After assisting the British Geological Survey of UNESCO, it is estimated that the water level of Lake Titicaca will take at least 15,000 years to retreat from the Tiwanaku site to today's position. If many people don't believe the conclusion that Tiwanaku was built 15,000 years ago, then the ancient city I will talk about next is less controversial. In 1994, Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady surveyed the Andes Mountains when several peculiar mounds caught her eyes. Intuition tells her that these are not like natural mounds, and ancient mysteries may be hidden beneath them. So, she led the team and began to try to excavate, and this excavation unearthed a discovery that shocked the world. Shady's intuition didn't deceive her. This ancient Peruvian city, called Corral, is still being excavated today. However, Corral's date has been pushed back to 4,627 years ago, older than any South American building. Before Corral, the oldest in South America was the Olmec site, about 4,500 years ago. Corral is even older than the pyramids of Giza in ancient Egypt. The pyramids of Giza are around 4,550 years old. Moreover, Corral's dating is not the final result. Corral's dating is likely to go forward and older with the deepening of the excavation strata. Corral also has pyramids that look similar to the Akapana pyramid in Tiwanaku. In addition, a large amphitheater was also found at the Corral site, which is in no way inferior to the ancient Egyptian and Sumerian civilizations of the same era. This discovery fits well with the legendary Viracocha. The legendary Viracocha is technologically advanced, peaceful, and kind. So it is regarded as a god by the local indigenous people. Most importantly, archaeologists agree that Corral is not the work of any known South American civilization. It is far older than the Inca civilization, so the builder is definitely not Incas. So could it be said that Viracocha of Inca's legend built it? If so, where did Viracocha come from? Flem Ath spoke amazingly. He said they were from Antarctica, the snow-covered continent. Flem Ath reasoned that the architecture and ornamentation of Tiwanaku and Pumapunku were too unique and self-contained. Therefore, if an unknown race like Viracocha indeed creates them, this civilization must have its birthplace, the Mother Civilization. Since the Mother Civilization has nothing to do with the known civilizations on any continent, we can use the exclusion method to exclude Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas, and the Pacific Islands, and only the snow-covered Antarctica is left. Is Flem Ath crazy, you might say? Could penguins be ancestors of Viracocha? Flem Ath will tell you, no. Because 12,000 years ago, it is likely that the Antarctic continent was not where it is now. 12,000 years ago, when more than half of the Antarctic continent was outside the Antarctic Circle, close to the latitudes where southern Australia and New Zealand are today, it was a temperate marine climate. At that time, the South Pole of the Earth was just an empty ocean. The northernmost point of the Antarctic continent was probably close to the subtropical region. The reason why Antarctica is now covered in ice and snow is because of polar motion. In the 20th century, the polar motion theory was just a legend, but in the 21st century, it is becoming more and more realistic. In 2020, an article was published in Nature titled "Temperate Rainforests Near the South Pole During Peak Cretaceous Warmth." The article said that in 2017, a research team led by sedimentologist Dr. Johan Klages discovered more than 60 frozen Mesozoic plants while drilling the seabed in West Antarctica. These plants are similar to the plant community in northern Italy, belonging to the temperate rainforest vegetation. There is evidence that West Antarctica was indeed temperate long ago. So when did Antarctica get dumped to where it is now? Flem Ath read such a report. Then, in the summer of 1996, geologist Timothy H. Heaton found the jaw and pelvis of an ancient man in a cave in Alaska. He took these findings back to the lab for analysis and found that the human skeleton was more than 10,000 years old, the earliest human skeleton ever found in Alaska at the time. This is a significant discovery, and the archaeological community and the media are very excited, thinking that most of it are the ancestor of the local indigenous people. However, along with some stone tools unearthed from the human bones, these tools do not look like native Alaska stone tools. Because there were no reliable means to make a more in-depth identification, the shelving was put on hold for 12 years. In 2008, scientists thought of this ancient man again. They used mature DNA technology analysis and identification to analyze whether the ancient man's corpse was related to the modern human race. The analysis results are startling again. He is not a native of North America, but a stranger who died in Alaska more than 10,000 years ago. He is only 20 years old. The closest relatives to this tragic young man are the modern Yagan people. The Yagan people are very ancient. They lived in Isla Grande de Tierra del Fuego in South America with a history of nearly 12,000 years. The Isla Grande de Tierra del Fuego is the closest South American island to Antarctica, and it is only 800 kilometers from the nearest place to Antarctica today. So this ancient corpse, more than 10,000 years ago, his descendants lived in the southernmost tip of South America. However, he appeared in Alaska, the northernmost part of North America, indicating that his racial distribution was very extensive or able to sail long distances at the time of his death. With the discovery of temperate plants on the Antarctic seabed and archaeological findings of ancient hominins, this direct and indirect evidence made Flem Ath more convinced of his inferences. More than 12,000 years ago, the Antarctic continent was still in the temperate zone, and it was a place where spring flowers bloomed. There is a developed civilization on it, and what they are best at is using boulders as building materials. They can control and process boulders easily and build giant pyramids more than 1,000 meters high. But in a global natural disaster, the Antarctic continent moved to its current location, and after that, the Antarctic continent began to be frozen. People who survived the apocalypse left Antarctica in search of new homes. Some people went to South America, which is the closest to the South Pole, and became the legendary god of the Indians, Viracocha. In the Ellsworth Mountains of Antarctica, the satellite photographed an object suspected to be a giant pyramid. Flem Ath clearly believes that this is one of the relics left by the ancient civilization of Antarctica.